Hey there, I'm Rambo. I'm a photographer from New Zealand. Best known for my surf and ocean imagery, but I also shoot a lot of lifestyle, weddings, landscapes, and a little bit of video from time to time. Had a chance to play with this guy here, the new Sony A74. I'm nowhere near tech enough to give like a full-on review, but I thought I'd make a quick video on my first impressions and a few of the features that I really like. Although we had one pretty minor disagreement, on a whole it was a great experience. I'm stoked the A74's got a 33 megapixel sensor. My main outlet for my ocean photography is selling prints. It's great to have some extra resolution so my images look epic printed large. One feature I'm super happy about is the option to be able to close the shutter when changing lenses. So I'm often changing lenses out on super windy beaches, and it's not unusual for me to end up with dust on my sensor. So dust shows up really bad at high apertures, and that's usually how I shoot my slow shutter wave images, so I can keep the shutter open a little bit longer. In the past, I've spent a lot of time in post sort of cleaning up those dust spots on my images, so that's definitely something I'm not going to miss. To turn this feature on, you navigate to the end of the setup menu into setup option, and you'll find it under anti-dust function. I'm real pumped that the A74 has active stabilization. Most Sony cameras have stabilized sensors, but active stabilization means it punches in a tiny little bit and then adds some extra digital stabilization as well. So here's some examples that I shot. So this one's no stabilization, standard sensor stabilization, and active stabilization, which you can see is a lot smoother. I shot these on a stroll up our local mini mountain, which is at the end of our beach, and this is the view from the top. I'm loving the new horizontal menu setup, so you can now see 3 tiers of the menu at once, so it's a lot easier to navigate. When you're in the menu, you can also use the FN button to jump between menu categories. I shot a wedding with the A74 and it performed amazingly well. 33 megapixels is perfect for weddings. This gives you the opportunity to be able to crop out any distractions that are on the edge of the frame. And often at weddings I'll shoot everything in landscape, and then just occasionally I might want to crop something into portrait. So yeah, it's great to have that resolution to be able to do that. There's a comparison that I shot with the A74 and the 50mm f1.2. So the first frame shot at f2.8 and the second frame is shot at f1.2. So yeah, it's really interesting the difference in the background fall off there at f1.2. Focusing on the A74 was spot on. Check how crisp and sharp this image is at 100%, and that one was shot at f1.2. It took me a while to find the filming mode, as it's no longer on this top dial. It now has its own separate little dial underneath. At first I thought this was kind of stupid, but after giving it a go I realized how much better the separate switch is. So now you can change to movie mode, and then the main dial you can easily switch to like aperture priority or shutter priority or in manual mode. So it's sort of like having 2 dials in a way. So yeah, it's really, really cool. In the past you had to dig around the menus if you wanted to change these shooting modes. They've also moved the dedicated record button to the top here, so this just makes it really easy to jump back and forth if you're shooting from stills to video. So the body of the A74 is a touch different to the other recent models. I have housings for the A7R4 and the A7S3, and I was hoping it was going to fit in one of those, but yeah, unfortunately it seems like it's a tiny little bit thicker through here, a little bit bigger, maybe just like 0.5 mil, but for a housing, yeah, they're sort of customized to fit exactly. So I managed to get into the A7R4 housing by doing a few crude modifications, and I lost a little bit of the functionality, but I could still push the shutter so I could still take photos. Here's a few photos I shot on a foggy morning recently with the A74 and the 50mm f1.2. So the A74 performed exceptionally well for surf photography. Interestingly enough, I forgot to turn the face recognition off, and I found it actually worked really well for focusing even for fast action. You can see how accurate and crisp the focus is at 100%. I'd like to have shot everything at f1.2 as it looks so dreamy in the water, but once the sun came out there was far too much light. So the next time I used it, I added an ND filter. So using the ND filter, it just meant I could keep the lens wide open at f1.2 while shooting these sunset water details. This session didn't really end too well. I accidentally conducted a test to see if my head or water housing was stronger. And the results are in. Housing wins this time. So after having a week out of the water to let my head heal, I went out and shot these at sunrise this morning. With the ND filter on, I decided it'd be fun to shoot the whole session at f1.2, and amazingly every single shot was tack sharp. As this is a pre-release camera, the raw files aren't supported in Lightroom yet, so I had to edit these shots from JPEGs. It's a little bit niggly for challenging sunrise lighting, as there's nowhere near as much information in the shadows and highlights to recover, plus the white balance and ND filter color cast are baked in, so don't judge my edits. My OCD will probably force me to go back and re-edit these when Lightroom updates. The A74 has a CF Express A slot. You can also use a regular SD card in the slot, so it gives you the best of both worlds. CF Express is some sort of new tech, which is way over my head, but basically can just give you superior write speeds. And it's cool to have that base covered for in the future, because it looks like that's the way cards are heading. I love the A74 flip screen, so it's really handy if you want to film yourself, or if you want to shoot adventure selfies using the smartphone remote. They've also added touch focusing to the smartphone remote, so yeah, that's really handy. Sony have updated the live streaming functionality with the A74, so now you can just plug the camera in and your computer will recognize it straight away and you're good to go. So you don't have to install any software at all. And you can also record internally while live streaming, so yeah, pretty epic if you want to edit later on. The A74 is a great versatile camera that can cover all bases. I like how they've incorporated some of my favorite features and then added a few new ones. It's a perfect camera if you're like a hybrid shooter, you want to shoot a bit of stills and video, great for vlogging and epic for streaming. So basically it's a camera that has the tech to keep up with all the requirements of a modern shooter. Okay, so that's my initial thoughts on the Sony A74. If you've got any questions, drop them below. Thanks for watching.